But this question about when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Well, this is a really complex question, right? Because how we perceive ourselves is very much connected to our microbes and how we feel.
There's a sharp contrast between a long life and one well lived. What would it feel like to lift the veil and perceive the world in a new, vivid way? Welcome to the most exciting adventure of your life. Welcome to a new way of living, and welcome to Season 2 of the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast.
Hi, I'm Casey.
And I'm Andy. And we're on a mission to inspire and guide 1 million people to live a life of purpose, passion, and self-mastery through the 5 mountains of cutting-edge human development and mental fitness.
Today, we're speaking with brain coach Melissa Bloom. Founder of Aligned Life, a members-only community, she uses her background in molecular biology, clinical trials, and yoga to focus on the new frontier, the brain. Her work with clients focuses on the gut microbiome, which is the master conductor regulating all major bodily systems, and other lifestyle pillars of the body-brain equation like circadian rhythms and sleep, time in nature, movement, and nutrition. Welcome, Melissa.
Thanks, guys. I'm happy to be here.
Awesome. We're so excited to have you and chat with you today. But we usually start with an icebreaker that we ask everybody. So what are you most excited about in your life right now?
I am very excited about, can I give 2 things?
Absolutely.
One thing, I just started writing a book. And
congratulations.
Thank you. I'm very excited about it. It feels really good. So in 6 months, I may not say that, but right now it feels really good. And the second thing I'm really excited about, honestly, is I've been creating a lot of different arms to what I'm doing. I do a lot of different things. And so my days are getting much more varied. And that to me is freedom. That feels really good. Like I love having this huge variety of experiences and anticipating that when I wake up. So that for me is what I'm loving and so excited about lately.
Oh, that's great. I love that idea too. Just having so much variety and
it's
not
fun.
Doing the same thing.
Yeah, it's fun. And then sometimes you wake up. I mean, this is part of a meditation I do in the morning, but I wake up and I actually think about what wondrous things are going to happen that I don't even anticipate, right? So I know the things that I have planned that are varied and interesting, like being on your show, and I was very excited. But then what other wondrous things are going to happen, right? That I don't anticipate, but I expect. And that's a really fun place to live too.
Oh, wow. I love the idea of that too. So much power behind that. Like I can't think of the word I'm looking for right now.
Manifesting.
Yes.
Right. Curiosity. What's coming next? What else can I lean into and tap into? I think as humans, we tend to like rituals or routines and schedules because they kind of keep us on track and keep us moving along. But that can be very boring.
Mm-hmm.
And then if you add in a little curiosity and a little variety, you shake things up, and then you find you've got a new outlook on life, something to look forward to.
Yeah. And you don't know exactly what it is.
Yeah. It's a surprise.
It's a surprise. And it could be something really small, but every day there is something that surprises me and I look forward to it. And it just creates this feeling like we don't really know how the day's going to go. We think we do, right? And we can plan it out, but we don't really know. And so if you're open to all of that possibility, that immediately sets your day in a very different feeling place, right?
Yeah. One of the things that I've been playing with is something that a mutual friend of ours, Brian Bradley, had mentioned to me or mentioned to us a few weeks ago. And that is that we get to wake up every morning and we get to do this, right? This is our choice. We get to go out into the world and help people be better human beings and just enjoy their lives more. And to me, that's such a rewarding and powerful thing. So when you take that mindset and you apply it in addition to what you're talking about, it's like there's this whole different energy going on, right? When you make that mind shift.
Yeah. Yeah. And I love Brian Bradley too. He's one of my faves.
So Melissa, we always like to know what kind of brought you to where you're at now. So what was your path like, to molecular biology, to yoga and mental fitness?
So I always love science. Most of the people in my family, um, let's say most of the men in my family, have pursued science in some way. So I love science, and it's just always been part of my life since I was a little girl. My dad has a PhD in physics, and we always were talking about science. Um, so I worked at a headache center, and it turned out to be one of the premier headache centers in the United States. And I worked there for many years before I had kids. And then I worked part-time when my oldest son was born. Um, and my mindset now about that kind of medical environment is very different. But what I loved, and I really have this great nostalgia for that time, was these were people who were helping people who could not function. It was a tertiary care headache center. So people came in with chronic migraine, chronic daily headache. They had no life. They were not able to function in their life. And so the ability to give people back their lives is very powerful. So I think some of my inspiration started there. And then I took many years off. I had twins, and that was a whole crazy story. They were very, very early, very premature. So I was home for about a decade. And then I got into yoga, and that's actually where I connect with our friends, the Bradleys, because I did my yoga training with Kara.
Wow.
Yeah, at Verge Yoga Center. So it was great. And it was through some struggles with my son, and we can talk about him, that Kara was able to help guide me. And that's really how I got into mental fitness and the gut brain axis and everything I'm doing now. So, in terms of like, well, is there formal training? I would say it was like 2 decades of just life, right?
What better
Yeah,
training is there?
Right.
exactly.
That's
Right.
it. Yeah.
I'm curious. You had mentioned that you've got a different perspective now on the headache clinic or that type of environment. And what's changed for you? The way you look at that type of environment.
So the doctors I work with were great. I mean, they were really amazing physicians. But when we think about Western medicine, we really separate and kind of disconnect our body into pieces, right? So it's like we become this collection of spare parts. And so depending on which part is hurting when, you might see that person, right? So sometimes I kind of think about in my mind, it's like this smooth ball of slime, right? And then if you kind of push one piece of it, something else pops out over here. So then like the doctor comes and pushes that piece in, but then it pops out over here, and you push this piece in and it pops out over here. And it's like, what we're doing really is putting on all these band-aids and band-aids and band-aids. And then at some point, like, how many band-aids can you put on before you realize you're just covered in band-aids and you're not really feeling that great? You're alive, but you're not feeling that great. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to me. We've talked about this in other episodes of our show, but we're strong believers in integrated medicine, doctors who practice integrated medicine, right? And we think that, or I'll speak for myself, that Western medicine does a great job of treating, acute type situations,
Absolutely.
problems. And I think what you were going for there, or what I heard you say, is that, Western medicine has become so specialized that we've got a doctor for the toes, the foot, the ankle, the knee, and all other body parts. I'm exaggerating a bit. So we treat each segment, but not necessarily the whole person.
Yes. And even our head, it's wild. We have neurology, right? And then we have psychiatry and psychology. So we even separated that, like, if the wiring is off, wouldn't that affect how we feel? But no, those are separate departments,
Mm-hmm.
right? And it's even in the same, like, geographic region, right?
Yeah.
It is so funny, but they're so integrated. I mean, I can speak from experience, having been to a psychiatrist and a neurologist. And kind of to your point, anything I did with my neurologist, I had to work with the psychologist on to adjust there, and vice versa. So
Yes.
you push one button, something else happens, you have to deal with that. And yeah, everything's connected.
Yes,
So
it's all connected. And so
when I think about energy and vitality, I think about a kid. They have the energy to play, run around, climb things. That energy that feels like you just can't contain yourself. It's the stuff we've always wished they could just bottle up and sell to us, right? Well, this company's found a way to do just that. Amari's Happy Juice Pack. Mood, motivation, energy, things our bodies can naturally produce when both our guts and our brains are happy and communicating. And we can actually improve that process of communication across the axis of the gut and the brain. This is cutting edge science. This is game-changing information. This is where science meets soul. This is Amari, and we're helping people feel better naturally. Boost your serotonin and GABA. Balance your neurotransmitters. Nourish your gut. The things that make you want to do. Start feeling better the natural way. Check out the links in the show notes for discounts and more information.
I agree. Functional medicine, integrated medicine is the way to go. And really thinking about, there's two states in our body, allostasis and homeostasis, right? Allostasis, you're out of balance, the scales have tipped. And homeostasis, you're in balance, right? And when we're in balance, everything functions at an optimal level. And that's what we're looking to achieve, right? So everything we do, everything we put in our body, every way we move, every, moment that we spend in meditation is to find our way here.
Beautiful. Yeah. I think what came up for me there, Melissa, is that every choice we make to get up early in the morning, to fuel properly, to go through our somatic movement practices, to go through training routines, meditation, it's those little decisions we make each day that have a massive compounding effect on the quality of our life and the decisions we're able to make. So the small decisions, it's not always the big decisions that have the biggest impact on our life. It's the little ones that we make each day. And, I think that is such a strong realization. It is life-changing if you lean into it.
Yeah, I totally agree. Yeah.
Absolutely. So in your bio, it talks about the gut microbiome as being the master conductor of our bodily systems. So it's not the brain?
So, our brain definitely has a role, right? Our brain has a role. But the gut is kind of pulling the puppet strings, right? So we know that most of the neurochemicals that we're looking for in the brain are produced in the gut. But the story gets far more complex than that, and the complexity is only just being understood. So here's the thing. In terms of cells, we are roughly 10% human, right? So 90% of the cells in our body are microbial, viruses, protozoa, archaea, bacteria, right? All sorts of single cell organisms. But in terms of genetic material, we are maybe at most 1% human. So what that means is that so much of the processes and the systems in our body that control our hormones, our immune system, our neurotransmitters are controlled by our microbes and the genes that encode them. So these microbes have like a 15-minute lifespan. So talking about one microbe is a bit irrelevant, but talking about their genetic material is really relevant because that's what we're talking about. And those genes encode so many of the kind of precursors to molecules that we use all over our entire body, right? Like little things like the iodine that our thyroid needs, coded by microbes, right? Oh, but that's like one of like thousands of examples. It's almost wild. So our brain has a role, but especially the more emotional part of our brain, right? When we talk about our limbic system and how we feel, our resilience, how we handle stress, how we perceive our world, is very much controlled by the compounds that our microbes produce and what they help turn off, right? So we have this huge stress response, our fight or flight response, and that's mediated by serotonin and GABA and other molecules that our gut is producing, right? So if we get our gut here, we produce more of the chemicals that are going to turn off this constant churn of epinephrine and cortisol and all these molecules that in the short term can be great for us, right? They're going to help us push a car out of the way of our child, right? Or take an exam and be sharp and razor focused. But they're also, that constant churn will eventually kill us.
Wow, fascinating. What came for me there is, so when I look in the mirror every day, what am I seeing? How much of what I see is me versus microbes and viruses, and I guess that's my question, right? Is it really, is it part of me? Is it what, do those things make up who I am, or are they separate but having maybe a symbiotic relationship?
It is a symbiotic relationship. I would say they get the short end of the stick. So we feed them and they do everything else for us. But this question about when you look in the mirror, what do you see? Well, this is a really complex question, right? Because how we perceive ourselves is very much connected to our microbes and how we feel, right? Because you can look in the mirror, looking in the mirror is not objective in any way, shape, or form, right? You can, have this massive imbalance and feel so much anxiety, so much depression, feel so overwhelmed, like you can't even take a breath in your life. And the way that you look at yourself is going to, even your appearance is going to look dramatically different than when you're in a place of ease and resilience and flow and gratitude and joy and love, right?
Yeah. So do you have a sense of what impact or what role do these microbes play in intuition?
Mm. This is a tricky subject because intuition, um, we start to bring up this concept of a collective consciousness, right? So intuition is tricky, and the short answer I'm going to give you is, um, I don't know of any scientists who are specifically studying microbes and intuition. And I say that because the science of the microbiome has for a long time been fringe science. It's only in the last 5 years that, with thousands of papers published, it's becoming more mainstream, right? And we have a slew of books written about it. And if you ask me, the people writing those books are being very careful to keep the conversation grounded in quantifiable science.
Rightly so. That makes sense. I think that there's this fine line between what we can prove and what we know, or at least what we think we know. And anecdotal evidence, suggests that, you've got this symbiotic relationship with these microbes in your body. They're supporting you, perhaps even giving you signals outside of the GABA or the norepinephrine, the dopamine.
Mm-hmm.
So it's always curious to me as to what people think about what role that plays in intuition, because I think that there's, in my opinion, there's probably a connection there, right? And we'll wait for the science to validate that, but for now, I'm just going to go with it.
And I think you're right. And actually, that is a part of my book, right? Is talking about the path to understanding what you were meant to do, right? And really leaning into intuition and listening. And that conversation can't be had if we don't also address physiology.
Yeah. Yeah. I was kind of clumsy with that statement. When we open ourselves up to different possibilities and we take time to quiet our minds and hear the messages our body is sending to us, it's telling us what we want or what we need. And when we're quiet enough to hear that message, there's a power to that. And also, I think the ability to intuit things, be connected to other people and, what they're feeling, empathic maybe is another way to say that. But when we're not in balance, when our gut biome is jacked up, like a lot of us have, eating the Western diet and the stuff that's available on all the aisles in the grocery store, we get totally out of whack, and those signals aren't happening in the right way or as strong as they should, perhaps. And we just don't feel or hear those messages being sent.
Yeah. And I think what's really interesting, so there's many reasons why we're kind of in this pickle of being very out of balance, right? And we would call it in the gut dysbiosis, but there's many, many reasons, diet just being one piece of that. But what's very interesting is how you feel, your emotional response is also going to dictate physiology. So it's a bi-directional conversation.
What I keep thinking about too, like you mentioned, there's articles left and right. The health and wellness world is just blowing up with hype around the science about the gut biome. What's it leading to? Why is this such an important discovery for the human race right now, or at least our culture?
This episode of Fierce Planet Adventures podcast is brought to you by 5 Mountain Coaching, licensed unbeatable mind coaching, integrated accelerated vertical growth across 5 domains of cutting-edge development designed by retired Navy SEAL Commander Mark Devine. Learn the Big 4 skills of mental toughness and resiliency. Discover the 6 pillars of performance. Test your mettle with custom-created crucibles across all 5 domains. Visit 5mountaincoaching.com to schedule your free 1-hour unbeatable mind coaching session. That's the number 5, mountaincoaching.com. Begin your journey to becoming unbeatable today.
So we can have we could take a negative view of medicine and pharmaceuticals, but I think that really they're trying to solve a problem. And yes, there's money involved, but they're trying to solve a problem. There are people there who believe that they are on a path to help people. And I think the science of the microbiome has been so powerful because it helps explain a lot of what doctors are seeing and just couldn't understand why, right? Every patient who comes in with IBS also has anxiety, right? And so what is that connection? Is IBS an anxiety disorder? Well, yes and no, right? But I think what it's doing for people, and I believe most of our medical community really does care, is it's helping to kind of, open up and say, look, it's all connected, right? We knew this for decades, right? Many cultures have known this for thousands of years, but it's saying, look, it's okay. We went down the wrong path, but it's all connected. And this is how it's all connected. And we can really help people prevent chronic illness and a lot of suffering if we put a lot of time and a lot of money into rebuilding this ecosystem that we've kind of decimated.
Yeah. Thank you for that perspective, because we tend to think about the medical world of, it's all pharmaceutical driven and all patient versus doctor, or, us versus the insurance company. But to your point, we tend to forget about those people that are in the, behind the scenes trying to help people. So I do appreciate that viewpoint as well.
And we don't have to go down that road. But the thing is that in medical school, you have people who really do want to help people. And this is what they're taught in medical school, is based on this collection of symptoms, here's the prescription that would be the most beneficial, because they're only going to have 10 minutes with a patient, right? So based on this collection, here's what you're going to do. And so that's a good part of the training. And it's only when you get fed up with that model that people go into functional or integrative medicine. It's pretty tough for a new doctor to start a functional medicine practice, right? That's not easy. Most are not covered by insurance. It's expensive. So it's kind of like, it's not even really their fault. This is the curriculum.
Yeah. Wow. It certainly opens up a whole different perspective for me, and different level of empathy too. So,
yeah.
Sort of changing subjects just a little. Yeah. You work with clients to, like you were saying, balance their body and brain. You call it the body-brain equation. Mm-hmm. What does that look like to have a balanced equation?
So a balanced equation is going to involve every part of your physical lifestyle, and then we walk through the emotional, kind of mindset, energetic piece, right?
Yeah.
So in terms of kind of the basic structure, I mean, honestly, the physical stuff that I do, I don't spend a lot of time doing. If people, I have, people that you can exercise with, right? Find movement that you love. Find movement that you love, right? Nutrition, eat lots of plants, right? We can keep it pretty simple. I'm not a nutritionist. I can connect people to nutritionists, but fairly simple rules, right? Not eating a lot of sugar and processed food. Really an excess of plants on the plate. Sleep. I mean, I could spend an hour talking about sleep, right? And supplementation. I don't require that all my clients are on some kind of gut brain supplementation, but I do give it as an option, because no amount of food, sleep, movement, and meditation is going to really get us where we want to go. And I feel sad saying that, but the variables that are in the equation working against us are too great, right? And this is like the little Debbie Downer part of the conversation for like 30 seconds. It's like toxins in every part of our farming system, water supply, right? In the air, and then our stress, and then kind of what we're eating, and then just, the culture that we're in, where you just keep working and let's sleep 3 hours and just keep working some more, right? So all of that, I don't know if there's a way to combat everything, to allow our ecosystem to heal and grow. And so that's why I recommend supplementation. And then we walk through the mindset door.
Okay.
Sorry, I thought you were saying something.
No. Well, I think what intrigues me there is, let's get our gut biome in balance first, or at least as a priority. And then from there, we have the capacity to really go down the road of meditation. Our thinking is clear, brain fog perhaps is lifted. Those chemicals that are produced, that you talked about, produced in our gut, they're flowing better, they're in balance. And then we're able to access, witness states and take time to meditate and be aware of what's going on around us in a deep, meaningful way.
Yeah, that's it. It's funny. I think it was 2 days ago, I was on a call and somebody asked me that very question, well, should I start just coaching, or should I kind of go work on the gut brain axis first and then start coaching? She said, is there a hierarchy? And I said, honestly, I would go with the gut brain first. I think that's true for everybody. And there are people who, the idea of taking something that's not just food, but, some version of supplementation, people have a reaction to, right? Or a skepticism towards. And so I really do understand that. And I actually try to unpack skepticism in general, because that too is very telling. When people are so skeptical, right? That's very telling of kind of this very scarce mindset, where people are out to take advantage of me.
Yeah. Exactly. In a world where everybody's out to grab your dollar, and people have spent thousands of dollars on supplementation products that fall short of delivering on their promise, or don't work at all, or have side effects, I can understand people's skepticism, and it's rightly placed. And I think people, they need to ask those powerful questions and do their due diligence before they commit to, any big long-term process of supplementation or program. So I'm with you there. So how do we get there? what's your choice here?
What do you mean? How do we get there?
Well, to balance the gut biome, and when you talk about the products that you offer, and this is a kind of a setup question because I already know where we're going with this and what the answer is.
Right.
But I want to hear from you. What's your take on this, and what direction do you take people?
So in general, there are a few big questions that I ask people. I am always going to put someone on a gut-brain system that addresses the gut, lowers inflammation in the brain, and helps with the communication, right? The axis in between. That's a given. But there are other questions that I also ask. I think every human should be on some kind of fish oil at night, right? There's no way that we can eat enough for our brains to thrive. So that's a given. And if someone's already taking that, I have them just move it to night, take it at night. I always ask about sleep. If you said to me, what is the most important pillar, right? Is it movement? Is it nutrition? Is it meditation? Sleep. Sleep's number one for me. Sleep is above everything else. It's so hard to convey the importance of what happens when we're sleeping. And you may have had other guests on or talk about sleep. So if this is, repetition, I apologize. So sleep, about 10 years ago in 2012, these guys at Rochester discovered what's called the glymphatic system. And we have in our body, our toxin drainage system is our lymphatic system. So the glymphatic system actually connects into the lymphatic system. And this only happens at night. And it's actually when our focus neurotransmitter, norepinephrine, is low. The cells in our brain contract, and it allows cerebral spinal fluid to move in between cells and wash our brain. And it then connects into our lymphatic system and drains out. Toxins in the brain and inflammation in the brain is probably the biggest driver of why we feel unwell. And it's connected to the gut, right? We could talk about all the connections from, the short chain fatty acids and our blood-brain barrier and all these, our gut controlling inflammation. But really, toxins and inflammation in the brain, what's happening is our signals are getting crossed, our signals slow down, and tissue is dying. And that's what's happening in Alzheimer's, right? Our microglial cells are getting stuck in these tangles and they're dying. And that's why we're losing neurons. So if you want to be bright and clear and have your mind until you're 110 and be happy and, calm and able to manage your life, you have to sleep. You have to sleep. That's it.
Fish oil at night. I don't know if I've heard that before. What's the thought process or the behind doing that at night?
So a bunch of functional medicine doctors recommend that, and it's because it can help lower cortisol levels at night. And cortisol, is part of our circadian rhythm. That's kind of what we would call our stress hormone. Cortisol is actually not a bad thing. There are times when we want cortisol. Cortisol is high around 8 a.m. and it's what gets us up and out of bed and ready to take on the day. That's not a bad thing. But cortisol at 3 a.m. is why you're wide awake in the middle of the night and you cannot go back to sleep. So fish oil at night is really helping kind of control cortisol levels so that your cortisol follows that really optimal circadian rhythm.
So I certainly could attest to putting in the work to a physical practice, a mental emotional practice, working on everything, having that missing piece of working on that gut brain axis, that connection it was huge for me. I mean, we certainly did a lot of work for transformation, but being able to optimize that piece of it, it's almost like you said in your bio, like lifting a veil.
It lifts the veil.
It certainly does.
Yeah.
But you actually have a very powerful story, a real world example of transformation and the power of focusing on this gut brain axis connection.
Yeah.
Would you mind sharing that with us?
No, absolutely. So this was kind of the piece where Kara helped me, and this, I mean, it really changed the course of my life, right? Because then I started a whole business, and it's been just wild and fun. But a couple years ago, my son is 14 now. He was 12. And it's interesting because he was always the kind of kid that you walked on eggshells around. And anything would set him off. I remember, this is just an anecdote, being at the Statue of Liberty, and we're with my parents, and I find the Statue of Liberty really moving, so I'm crying, my dad's crying, we're just like a bunch of immigrants crying, and we have tickets to go in, and so we're going to have lunch, and then I'm with my twins, and we're going to go in and walk to the top, and so my oldest doesn't like the chicken tenders at the cafe, and he never ate very well to begin with, but those chicken tenders were a disgrace, and he sobbed for about 2 hours over the chicken tenders, and he refused to go in the Statue of Liberty. So my dad stayed with him, and they missed out on it. And who knows when, or if they'll get another opportunity. I'm sure they will, hopefully, but it was that kind of thing. That's something like a chicken tender that wasn't like to the proper crispness would set off this like cascade of emotion that he could not walk back from.
Yeah. So
things started to escalate, and it was 2 years ago, almost exactly. My grandmother turned 100. She's since passed away, but she turned 100, and we were in Florida, and my son said to me, I'm thinking about killing myself. And I'm very fortunate that he told me. So I just feel lucky.
And this was at 12.
This is at 12.
This. Wow,
yeah.
So young.
So of course you think through kind of the traditional routes of help, right? When we got a therapist, I was always had a hard time with medication, especially for kids. And so I didn't pursue that route immediately. And that's when Kara came into my life and said, well, maybe you should try this. And it's interesting because we talk about being skeptical. I was so concerned about pharmaceuticals that I was like, well, anything that's really just plants, yes. How could it really be worse than the alternative, right? So I remember it was Thanksgiving 2 years ago. So this really is quite timely that we're talking, around this time. And I started him on a regimen for his gut brain. And kids are very different than adults, right? Kids have a plasticity that adults don't possess because we are just have a lot of sludge, right? We just have so many pathways to rewire, and just so much that it can take months for us to feel change. But for kids, it's like 2 to 3 weeks, and you can see really significant change. And so for us, it was 3 weeks of this daily regimen, and it was really like he was not the same child. It was just a transformation. It was a transformation, right? He went from having trouble focusing in school, obviously the mood, and the kind of suicidal ideation, but there was more. There was that resilience piece that was lacking for 12 years, where anything would set him off, that walking on eggshells. And that was gone.
Wow. That is,
yeah. And I think what's not always appreciated is what a change like that does in your home, right? For a parent, for a child, right? If you have an unhappy parent, what the change does in the home. And we didn't appreciate that we were essentially holding our breath all the time, right? Because you're waiting for the next shoe to drop. And so I had 2 other kids also in that environment. And then to go into now he's a teenager, and, he kind of likes us, he doesn't like us, but that's like typical and appropriate, right? But to know that we're safe, that we're not gonna kind of trip a wire, brings a level of ease that I think has really allowed everyone to flourish, but really allowed me to find what I was called to do. I don't think that I could have found my path, the steps here, had I not been holding all of that emotional load.
Yes.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you for sharing your story. That's wonderful. And I'm so happy that you were able to find this regiment and find that space. Otherwise, we wouldn't be talking here.
Yes. Yeah.
What does that regimen include? What does it look like? Because I think people who are listening are going to want to know more about this. And this is,
if you've been listening to our podcast or following us on socials, it's probably no surprise to you that I've been dealing with back issues for many years. And I want to take a moment just to tell you about something that I found that's helped me with my flexibility and durability and mobility. And that's called Kokoro Yoga, somatic warrior training. It's not just yoga. It also includes Tai Chi, Qigong, visualization, meditation, and breathwork practices such as Fit Warrior, Fighting Warrior, which incorporates functional fitness and some martial arts movements. And it's been just a really great way for me to maintain some flexibility and durability as I move through our challenges when we go and do Spartan races and climb mountains. So if this sounds like it's something that could help you out, check it out. The link's in the show notes.
Yeah. So for kids, it's really the same as adults. For my son, it was taking just 1 scoop of powder. He did take additional kind of mood support that has saffron. Saffron is unbelievable. It has like 160 kind of bioactive ingredient polyphenols and ingredients within it that activate all parts of the brain. So saffron's just unbelievable. But he took this kind of mood saffron product in addition to a scoop of powder that had all the ingredients for the gut, brain, and axis. So for kids, it's just a powder regimen because a lot of kids, including my kids, can't swallow capsules or anything like that. And so he does the same regimen now. I have everybody on it now for different reasons. But yeah, he's same regimen every single day.
Nice. And does he ever miss a day? Is he excited to take it? Does he understand what's actually happened?
So he's not excited to take it. He doesn't love taking it. He doesn't miss a day unless for some reason he's away at a sleepover in some situation. We had a period actually a year ago when there was a lot of shipping delays. Remember last holiday season, and he didn't have it for about 3 weeks. And I said to him, be honest, because I just want to know your opinion, right? Do you feel different, right? It's been 3 weeks. We haven't had it. Do you feel different? And he said, I don't feel that mood has changed. So that was still that benefit remained. But he said, my focus has been really poor and I'm having a hard time in school. So I think had he been off of it long term, we would have seen, an increase in the decline. But it's interesting that it was really the focus that was the first thing to dip in that 3-week period.
Okay. And just for our listeners, so they know, this powder that we're talking about is a prebiotic, probiotic, and phytobiotic mixture from Amari.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a certain formula that, if I'm understanding this correctly, is also just for kids.
Yes.
I'm not sure which one you're using, but they've got the adult version and the
Yes.
kid version.
Yeah, so all my kids are on the kid version. There are a couple ingredients in the kid version that are omitted from that, like the adult version has ingredients that haven't been tested in kids, so they don't include those, including one short chain fatty acid, which kind of helps our gut become less permeable. They haven't tested that one ingredient in kids, so they don't include that. So yes, it's daily powder. And I did look, I should take some because I lost my train of thought. I was going to say something. Isn't that so funny? I actually laugh when that happens because here I am supposed to be like so clear. And then when you lose your train of thought, you're like, oh no, it's happening.
We're still human.
We're still human.
I'm still human. Are you kidding?
Well, only 10%.
I'm only between 1 and 10%.
Oh, wow. What a huge impact, though. I mean, not only for your son, but to your point of the space that would create for the whole family, just having that feeling of safety.
Yeah. And I think it's sometimes hard for people to appreciate, like, spending money and time to feel better. I think that's just a huge deficit in our culture, that we really don't prioritize feeling good, and we don't really understand the radiating, the kind of domino effect that are investing in ourselves and feeling really good, what that does for layer upon layer radiating out from us.
Yes.
And we can see it in that kind of non-selfish way, how it's helping others, but it's helping us too. But it's fascinating that I know so many parents who will help their kids, but would never put the time or the money into helping themselves.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it really could transform kind of their home life, and then their work life, and then their extended family, right? And I mean, I'm a huge testament to the change in relationship with even my parents, right? It's changed completely over the last couple years. And that's invaluable, right? That change in relationship, even if I had that for, say, another 20 years, I can't put a price tag on. I'm so grateful to have that kind of newfound the ability to be with them and be easy.
Nice. Wonderful.
And just the gift too that you're able to provide to your son of huge.
And I think it's also been great in terms of, I talk a lot about with my clients and just with everyone in my life about the energy, the feeling of a solution versus a problem. right?
Yes.
How good a solution feels. And so I think he understands that and appreciates that him starting kind of this gut brain regimen was the beginning of, okay, we're just going to focus on the solution. We don't need to reprocess the problem and go down rabbit holes. We're going to focus on solutions, right? Big or small. And that feels very different.
Yes, the shift from what's wrong with me to what can I do to feel better, not
Yeah.
what's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
That's a very powerful story that you shared with us, Melissa. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
I hope some parents listening out there can take this story and apply it to their lives if appropriate. Where can people connect with you and find out more about the work that you do?
My website's a great place. I have a monthly newsletter that I send out that I love. It's actually been a great joy writing each month. So people can sign up for my newsletter there. There's all sorts of different ways on my website, email, set up a time to chat, ways to connect. And I love that. I love organic connection, right? So there doesn't have to be a purpose or an intent or a kind of planned outcome, right? It can just be like, let's just have a conversation.
Yes,
Nice.
You never know where that will end up.
You don't,
Yeah.
right? That's the wonder and the unexpected, right?
Exactly.
Bringing us back to the beginning of our
Yes,
conversation.
yes.
I love it. Well, Melissa, thank you so much for taking the time to speak with us today and for being a beacon on this journey we call life. We appreciate you.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
It's our pleasure. Thank you.
Friends, if you found the Fierce Planet Adventures podcast helpful, please consider leaving a 5-star review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. It helps others find our podcast.
If you screenshot your review and tag us on Instagram, we'll send you a classic Fierce Planet Adventures sticker. For your water bottle, cooler, car, send us a direct message with your mailing address on Instagram, and